Hello, good evening, and welcome to tonight's Scotland at 7 here at Broadcasting Scotland. My name is Donald C Stewart. I'm delighted to be with you this evening, and I will be all alone, unfortunately. We have our usual large range of topics that we would love to sit and discuss, but unfortunately we've not got a guest this evening for me to do that, but we have plenty to keep you entertained and take you through the news, as always, from a Scottish perspective. And as we always do on a daily and during the week and also at weekends, we begin with the Ukrainian update, which is now day 370 of the illegal Russian invasion of the sovereign state of Ukraine. And news today that the military situation is becoming increasingly difficult around the eastern Ukrainian town of Bakhmut. President Volodymyr Zelensky said today, as many of Ukraine's battlefields turn to mud. Russia's Pulkovo airport in St. Petersburg temporarily suspended all flights on Tuesday amid unconfirmed media reports of an unidentified object, such as a drone, being seen nearby. Russia's Ministry of Defence later announced there had been a training exercise between air defences and civil aviation authorities. The Russian Ministry of Defence has stated that it foiled 2 attempted Ukrainian attacks on Russian soil using drones overnight. A hacking attack caused some Russian regional broadcasters to put out a false warning on Tuesday, urging people to take shelter from an incoming missile attack, according to the Emergencies Ministry. A similar attack caused commercial radio stations in some Russian regions to send air alarm messages on Wednesday, the 22nd of February. And in a speech to FSB officials, Vladimir Putin has told Russia's FSB security service to step up its intelligence activity and stop sabotage groups from entering the country. Ukraine will become a NATO member in the long term, the alliance's Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg has said. The NATO chief stressed that the immediate priority was Ukraine remaining an independent country in the face of the Russian invasion. And Alexander Lukashenko of Belarus is due to visit Beijing on Tuesday for a meeting with China's President Xi Jinping in a high-profile trip which symbolises the widening gulf between America and China over the war in Ukraine. Xi's meeting with Lukashenko, a close ally of Putin, is seen internationally a sign of where Beijing's sympathies lie. Wizz Air will suspend all its flights to and from Moldova next month due to security concerns which are linked to growing tensions within Russia. It comes after a Russian missile was fired over Moldovan airspace earlier this month. And of course, that's tensions with Russia. Tensions within Russia we all in many ways have to guess about. Belarusian anti-war partisans have claimed that they have severely damaged a Russian military aircraft in what an opposition leader has called the most successful diversion since the beginning of the war. BIPOL, the Belarusian partisan organisation, said it had used drones to strike the Machalishki airfield 12 kilometres from Minsk, severely damaging a Beriev A-50 airborne early warning and control aircraft, or AWACS as it is known for short. At home, of course, the big news over the last few days that has been trailed by many news outlets has been what has been happening in Northern Ireland about and for. And of course, we've had the accord, we've had the agreement, and now we have the Windsor framework. As Rishi Sunak, Prime Minister, has celebrated Northern Ireland's unique and privileged position in having easy trade access to both the EU and UK markets, prompting critics to note that this was the case for the entire country before Brexit. In comments that might antagonise hardline Conservative Brexiters, the Prime Minister used an event in Northern Ireland to talk up what he called the prize that is on offer with his post-Brexit protocol. Speaking at a Coca-Cola factory in Lisbon, he said, if we get this right, if we get this framework implemented, we get the executive back up and running, Northern Ireland is in the unbelievably special position, the unique position in the entire world, and having privileged access not just to the UK home market, which is the 5th biggest in the world, but also the European Union single market. Nobody else has that. No one. Only you guys, only here. And that is the prize, I can tell you, when I go around the world and talk to businesses. They say, that's interesting. Nowhere else does that exist. It's like the world's most exciting economic zone. Stella Creasy, the Labour MP who chairs the Labour Movement for Europe, said while Sunak was correct about Northern Ireland, this had also previously been the case for the entire United Kingdom. The Prime Minister is boasting, she said, about the benefits of the single market and customs union for businesses in Northern Ireland, while denying those same benefits to businesses struggling in the rest of the UK with our current economic crisis. Downing Street insisted that Sunak hadn't meant to endorse membership of the single market, despite endorsing membership of the single market. The Prime Minister's official spokesman said, the British people made a decision in 2016 and we are seeing the benefits of that decision. With regards to Northern Ireland, it is simply a fact that because of our respect for the Good Friday Agreement and the central importance Northern Ireland's unique position means, it needs to have access to both markets, not least to avoid a border on the island of Ireland, which nobody wants to see. That puts us in a unique position, and what the framework does is finally cement those capabilities. The Scottish National Party has said that Scotland has been ignored once again as it overwhelmingly voted to remain within the European Union, commenting SNP Europe and EU accession spokesperson and obviously also former MEP Alan Smith said, Rishi Sunak is moonlighting as a Remainer, as he perfectly outlines how Scotland will be at a competitive disadvantage under Westminster control and outside the European Union. Northern Ireland voted to stay within the European Union and it is getting its wishes. However, Scotland voted overwhelmingly to reject Brexit, but we are living with the economic consequences every single day. Throughout the Brexit process, the SNP Scottish Government made sensible suggestions so Scotland's choice could be respected by remaining inside the single market and customs union. Those proposals were thrown in the bin, and Scotland was taken along for the ride as we were dragged out of Europe against our will. So, with the ink on the deal now drying, preparations can begin for Biden's anticipated trip to Northern Ireland in April to mark the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. In his statement, President Biden called for the rapid resumption of Northern Ireland's political institutions, adding as Northern Ireland prepares to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the agreement in April, let us remember that ending decades of conflict was not easy or inevitable. It required hard work and determination and an unfailing faith that a better future was possible. Of course, many commentators are asking the big question, which is, what will the Democratic Unionist Party do now? Early indications are that the party may not speak with one voice. Geoffrey Donaldson, their leader, sounding rather warmer in the Commons than hardliners Ian Paisley Jr. and Sammy Wilson. Party officials have told Political Ireland that the senior leadership would convene at its headquarters in Belfast, possibly on Saturday, to review the party's legal verdict on the deal, while a final pronouncement may take weeks. The European Reform Group's lawyers will start going through the 100-page agreement to see whether it meets the group's sovereignty test. Deputy Chairman David Jones told Politico's Esther Webber the group's verdict is still firmly TBC, to be confirmed. Sunak's decision to delay a Commons vote on the deal is a gamble, since, as one MP points out, this creates the risk they, meaning the hardline Brexiteers, will discover things they don't like. And of course, the longer the delay before the vote comes, the more discussion and indeed scrutiny from all sides. In the UK, scientists have breathed a sigh of relief amid hopes that they will now benefit from the €100 billion Horizon Europe programme after Rishi Sunak's deal with the European Union over the post-Brexit Northern Ireland Protocol. Of course, one of the things that Rishi Sunak was attempting to do was not just to find a solution to what was happening with the Northern Ireland Protocol, but trying to access some of the good things that the European Union had been doing prior to our decision to leave. And for more than 2 years, researchers in the United Kingdom have received little, if any, funding from the flagship European Union programme because of the tangle over Brexit trade deal negotiations. The situation has not only meant that researchers have been unable to apply for crucial grants, but has affected the ability of UK researchers to collaborate with those in the European Union and has led to concerns that the United Kingdom is becoming a less attractive location for top European researchers and students. Some leading scientists have already left the United Kingdom as a result. Now researchers say they have hopes that under the Windsor Framework, the UK could link up with Horizon Europe, a view apparently shared by Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President, who described the deal with Sunak as good news for scientists and researchers in the European Union and the United Kingdom. The moment it's implemented, she commented, "I'm happy to start immediately, right now, work on an association agreement, which is the precondition to join Horizon Europe." At a press conference announcing the accord, she was responded to by Professor Paul Nurse, a Nobel laureate and director of the Francis Crick Institute, who said the deal was good news. He said the government policy was to associate with Horizon Europe, and the only blockage was the acrimony over the Northern Ireland Protocol. So the potential solution of that problem now leaves the door wide open to association, allowing government to fulfil its policy. Professor Nurse went on to point out that this was crucial for the UK's scientific standing. Fundamentally, there's 3 main science groupings in the world: North America, Asia, increasingly focused on China, and of course Europe. And if you're outside one of those groupings, you're going to find it very difficult to be a major science nation because you're not part of the collaborations. You're not part of the network, you're not part of the setting of the agendas for the future, you're sort of floating out in the cold northeast Atlantic, he added. Professor Bruce Whitelaw, the director of the Roslin Institute, said, "If this paves the way for rebuilding closer science collaboration with our European colleagues, then this is definitely good progress." No nighttime bulletin, of course, is complete without reflecting on yet another day in the midst of the cost of living crisis. And inflation and the cost of food in the UK economy hit 17.1% in the 4 weeks to the 19th of February, which is another record high, dealing the latest blow consumers who are struggling with a cost of living crisis, industry data showed on Tuesday. Market research Kantar said prices are rising fastest in markets such as milk, eggs and margarine. It said UK households now face an additional £811 on their annual shopping bills if they don't change their behaviour to cut costs. This February marks a full year since monthly grocery inflation climbed above 4%. And this is having a big impact on people's lives, Fraser McKevitt, head of retail and consumer insight at Kantar, said. He said its research found that rising grocery prices are the second most important financial issue for the public behind energy costs. Also, a quarter of people say they're struggling financially versus 1 in 5 this time last year. After a tough 2022, UK consumers are facing a further squeeze on their finances this year as the government cuts back support on household energy bills and mortgage rates rise. However, official data published this month did show overall UK consumer price inflation fell to 10.1% in January, the lowest reading since September, whilst consumer confidence data from market research firm GfK last week showed consumers had turned more upbeat about their personal finances. Commenting, the SNP's economy spokesperson Stuart Hosey MP said, "Ordinary people are being priced out of basic food items as Brexit, the Tory-made cost of living crisis, and Westminster's failure to get a grip of inflation bite." Rising pressures have heaped hundreds of pounds onto annual household shopping bills, and that's just on the products people can still buy. Let's not forget the Tory failures have consistently led to food shortages and empty shelves across the UK. He went on to say the Chancellor must do what he can to reverse this and ensure families are in a better financial position than they were a year ago when the cost of living crisis started to spiral out of control. Without significant action, the UK government will let millions more households slip into poverty and destitution, a spiral that would one day see them preside over an entire nation reliant on food banks and charity to get by. He went on further to say the record of the Tories is a shocking one, and sadly we see no signs of promise that things will get better. Scottish households should not be made to pay such a high price for the failures of a Westminster government that it did not elect. We need the full powers of independence, giving us control over all financial levers so we can set Scotland on a better path towards just economic prosperity that works for everyone. And of course, if we're going to mention local and national politics, the SNP leadership election campaign is currently for many front and centre, and Humza Yousaf would introduce a major rollout of free childcare should he win the race to succeed Nicola Sturgeon. The SNP leadership candidate told the Daily Record that universal early learning for 1 and 2 year olds would be in his very first Scottish budget. He added that he would announce a £25 million a year childcare fund to help parents returning to work. Young families are being hit hard by the cost of living crisis, he said. As a parent myself, I know how hard it is for many parents going back to work while juggling the commitments of childcare and employment. All 3 and 4 year olds in Scotland are currently entitled to 1,140 hours a year under the current policy, but free childcare for 2 year olds is means tested. Yousaf also promised to roll out free early learning for all 1 and 2 year olds for up to 22 hours a week. The Record reports that the candidate's campaign believes the cost of phasing in the policy for 2 year olds first would be around £100 million for 2024-25. Yousaf continued, for those in low income, and particularly the upfront costs of childcare, transport and higher household bills are serious financial barriers, stopping many parents getting back to work, particularly in those first few months after returning to work when household budgets are stretched. And news today, worryingly for many, that Kate Forbes' first job in the Scottish Parliament was funded by an anti-abortion Christian lobby group. It has been revealed an investigation by Open Democracy has found that Forbes' role as a researcher for former MSP Dave Thompson was funded by the Christian Action Research and Education, CARE for short. CARE has funded internship programmes for more than 20 MPs in Westminster since 2010 and is known for its opposition to abortion, LGBTQ+ rights and sex education in schools. It's understood that Forbes was employed by Dave Thompson through the CARE internship scheme in 2011, graduating with a history degree from Cambridge University that very same year. When he retired from his role as MSP for Skye Lochaber and Badenoch in 2016, Forbes was his pick to replace him, which she proceeded to do by winning the seat at the 2016 Holyrood election. And in a blow to Kate Forbes today, Ivan McKee, the business minister, who was one of Kate's first and most prominent backers in the SNP leadership race, is no longer involved with her campaign. This is according to reports in The National. McKee is understood to have stepped back from his role at the head of Forbes' campaign on Monday morning. MSP Michelle Thompson is now running the Finance Secretary's bid to lead her party and the Scottish Government. A spokesperson for Forbes suggested McKee had stepped back as campaign manager due to time constraints. They said the leadership campaign is short. As a Scottish Government minister with significant responsibilities, Ivan McKee has limitations on his time. And back domestically, unfortunately, there is the announcement of a death following an explosion in Perth. A man has died and another is in hospital following an explosion and fire at a recycling centre. The fire service called to the blaze at the Shore Recycling Centre in Fratton Road in Perth at 20 to 1 this morning. Police Scotland said the body of a 46-year-old man was found at the site. The forces said formal identification is yet to take place, but his next of kin are aware. A 41-year-old man was seriously injured and taken to Ninewells Hospital in Dundee, where he's said to be in a stable condition. Chief Inspector Tom Leonard said, "Our thoughts are with the family and friends of the man who has died at what is a very difficult time for them, and indeed from all of us here too." But he continued, "Our inquiries are ongoing to establish the full circumstances of what has happened, and officers are conducting a joint investigation with the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service." The fire service said 6 fire engines and other specialist appliances are tackling the blaze. Mark Ruskell, MSP for Mid Scotland and Fife, said it was a very concerning incident and that he and his team were monitoring events very closely. He added, "My understanding is there has been some kind of explosion around an industrial recycling centre in the early hours, causing a significant fire and sending smoke thick high into the air." And news with the current First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, encouraging drink producers to register for Scotland's deposit return scheme, which will go live later on this year on the 16th of August. Drinks producers are asked to register with the scheme administrator, Circularity Scotland, in order to participate in the scheme and to help ensure that they meet the regulatory requirements. The scheme is expected to cut littering by a third, reducing the amount spent by local authorities on litter clean-up, and will increase recycling rates of single-use drink containers from the current rate of approximately half or 50%, coming closer towards 90%. The First Minister has also written today to the UK Prime Minister, reiterating that the United Kingdom government must exclude the deposit return scheme regulations from the Internal Market Act. The Scottish Government first requested an exclusion as far back as July 2021. The First Minister commented, "Scotland's deposit return scheme will be a major part of our efforts to reduce litter, cut emissions and build a cleaner, more circular economy. Good progress is being made by industry ahead of the scheme's introduction on the 16th of August, and I am aware of the significant private investment that has already been made by many businesses to be ready for the scheme and the many jobs that are being created to operate it. I would strongly encourage drink producers to register with the scheme administrator, Circularity Scotland. This is a vital step to ensuring everyone who needs to be is compliant with the regulations and is the best way to make sure that their products can be sold without issue in Scotland." I also want to reassure drinks producers with concerns about the impact of the scheme. SEPA, the Environmental Agency, has made clear that they will take a proportionate approach to compliance. They will work with businesses to help them get ready. Advice and guidance, not fines, will be the first step for any business that is clearly taking action but struggling to meet their obligations. The Scottish Government will continue to listen to the concerns of small producers and will consider if there is any further action we can take to support them ahead of the scheme going live. And from the deposit return scheme, really good news today that recorded crime has dropped. Scotland has seen a 2% fall in the number of crimes recorded police last year, to one of the lowest levels seen for any 12-month period since comparable records began way back in 1974. Newly published national statistics show that Police Scotland recorded 287,678 crimes in the year ending December 2022, and this compared to 292,316 crimes in the previous 12 months, and is 4% lower than the year to December 2018. The overall number of crimes recorded remains lower than before the pandemic, reflecting the long-term trend of fewer victims and people feeling safer in communities. Highlighted separately in annual Scottish Crime and Justice surveys that include incidents not reported to police as well as those which are. Compared to the year ending 2018, there were notable reductions in damage and reckless behaviour, down 10%, and housebreaking, down 38%. The overall reduction in recorded crime is reflected in the Scottish Crime and Justice Survey for 2019-20, published in March 2021, which indicated 1 in 8, 11.9%, 1 in 8 adults were victims of crime in 2019-20, significantly less than the 1 in 5 who were victims of crime for the period of 2008 to 2009, which was recorded at 20.4%. The survey also showed that people living in Scotland are less likely to be victims of crime than in England and Wales, where 13.3% of adults were victims of crime in 2019-20. Over the same period, from 2009 to 2019-20, the proportion of adults in Scotland who felt safe walking alone after dark in their local area increased from 66% 2010 to 77% 1920. Justice Secretary Keith Brown said these figures show Scotland continues to be a safe place to live, with recorded crime at one of the lowest levels seen since 1974. Most people do not experience crime, and these latest figures show reductions in incidents such as housebreaking and vandalism compared to pre-pandemic levels. This welcome trend reflects separate research showing people in Scotland are significantly less likely to be a victim of crime than those living in England and Wales. People here also feel safe walking in their communities during the evening. He went on to say, we recognise that there is still work to be done, which is why we have taken robust action to tackle sexual offending and have invested £93 million over the past 5 years to ensure that victims' rights and needs are at the centre of Scotland's criminal justice system. We also know the harm cybercrime and fraud can inflict on communities and support the efforts of Police Scotland and partners in tackling these kinds of crime. Nevertheless, these historically low levels of crime are testimony to the continued efforts across policing, justice and community safety partners to deliver a safer Scotland for everyone. And from crime to payments, Scottish Child Payments, in fact, there were 184,000 children and young people getting £25 a week in Scotland child payment by the end of 2022, according to the latest statistics. The figure includes 78,000 who have received it since the payment was extended to include children aged between 6 and 16 in November. Social Security Scotland had provided decisions to just over half the people who applied on the extension of the payment by the end of 2022. Decisions for the majority of people who applied or added additional children to their award between the 14th of November and 31st December 2022 have now been issued, and this will be reported on in the next round of statistics. The Scottish Child Payment was announced in the summer of 2019, with the first payments being made in February 2021. Since then, it has risen from £10 a week per child to £25 per week per child, a 150% increase in value. It means that the amount paid out to children totals £155 million until the end of last year. Ahead of extending Scottish Child Payment to under-16s, local authorities also made more than 1.1 million bridging payments across 2021 and 2022 to the families of school-aged children, worth a total of £169.3 million. Social Justice Secretary Shona Robson said, these figures demonstrate our commitment to tackling child poverty and the significant financial support we have made available to meet that aim. This is just a snapshot of all the work being done since Scottish Child Payment was extended and increased until the end of 2022. We've since processed tens of thousands more applications. This represents remarkable progress in the delivery of the most ambitious child poverty reduction measure in the United Kingdom. That increased payment of £1,300 per child per year is now benefiting families across Scotland. We want to make sure that everyone gets the help available to them. Parents or carers who are on universal credit, tax credits or other benefits and who have children under 16 should check through Social Security Scotland if they are eligible. And of course, that is all that we have for you this evening. But a few things before you disappear. Here at Broadcasting Scotland, we are, of course, looking at the news that is out there from a Scottish perspective. And I suppose one of the great debates, if you like, that is ongoing in Scotland at the moment is the debate over who it is that's going to succeed Nicola Sturgeon as First Minister. We at Broadcasting Scotland have the equipment, we have the studio, we have the ability to broadcast and are happy to host any live interviews or debates with those candidates who wish or would want to put themselves forward. We would even have an opportunity of including an audience within that as well. So the offer is out there, but of course, in making programmes at Broadcasting Scotland, like even offering to do something as ambitious as that, we rely on the support of viewers and others who value our distinctive approach to news, current affairs and culture. So the plea is, please help us to continue to make these programmes, to continue to develop the station and make new programmes for you. Our programmes will always be free to view, but if you can afford £5 a month, please consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter. We have set ourselves a target. That target is to raise £30,000 to enable us to employ staff to make more programmes. If I go back to the 70s, I can even quote, we have the technology, we have the ability. All we need is the support to make it happen. And for those who've already done that and donated, signing up to make a regular monthly payment as a Broadcasting Scotland supporter, thank you very much. There are other ways in which you can contribute to our work. If you would like to volunteer to work with us, either behind the scenes or doing what people like me do in front of the camera, or in any other way that helps our work and promotes the station, then please visit our website at www.broadcastingscotland.scot and send us a message there. You can find us on Twitter at BroadcastScot. Please like and retweet us there. And you can also find us on Facebook by searching for Broadcasting Scotland. When you're watching us on YouTube, it would be great if you would like and subscribe to Broadcasting Scotland on that platform. Well, we will be back tomorrow evening, for the next edition of Scotland 7. So please come back and join us then. And it is interesting to note that on this day in 1974, at the general election, the Scottish National Party took 22% of the vote and 7 parliamentary seats. Under the leadership of Billy Wolfe, the number of SNP MPs rose from 1 to 7 at that election. A further 4 were to be added at the second election that year in October. Following Mr Wolfe's death in March 2010, aged 86, Alex Salmond said that Wolfe had transformed it, meaning the SNP, into a modern political party. I'd like to thank everyone who has been watching, and I hope that you have a very peaceful evening. And from all of us here at Broadcasting Scotland, it's good night. See you soon.